The tea seller billionaire. In a bustling railway station in Mumbai, surrounded by honking trains and shouting vendors, stood a 10-year-old boy named Ravi. With a cracked kettle in one hand and a tray of paper cups in the other, he moved through crowds shouting, "Chai! Chai! Garam chai!" For most passengers, he was invisible, just another poor child trying to survive. But behind those determined eyes was a dream bigger than any train that passed by. The Tea Boy. Ravi's story began in a one-room slum where he lived with his ailing mother. His father, once a factory worker, had died in an accident when Ravi was just 5. Life turned dark quickly. With no relatives to rely on and no money for school, Ravi took charge of the home. By age 10, he was already working full-time, making tea at a small roadside stall owned by an old man named Shankar. Every day Ravi would get up at 4 a.m., wash steel kettles, boil water, mix tea leaves with milk, and serve tea to customers at the train station. He earned barely enough to buy food for himself and his mother. But Ravi was different. He listened. Whenever he served tea to businessmen or tech workers, he paid close attention to their conversations. They talked about startups, apps, IPOs, stocks, markets, and meetings in glass buildings he had never seen. Ravi didn't understand the words, but he remembered them. Every single one. The self-taught student. Late at night, after putting his mother to sleep, Ravi would walk 2 kilometers to a public library. He couldn't afford membership, so he'd stand outside the glass window and watch people read. Occasionally, a kind librarian would slip him an old book through the side gate. He started reading about business, economics, leadership, and entrepreneurship. When he finally saved enough to buy a second-hand smartphone, he began using free Wi-Fi from nearby cafes to watch YouTube videos. Business case studies, TED Talks, Shark Tank episodes, Ravi soaked in everything like a sponge. By age 15, he had read more books than most college students. Chai with a twist. At 16, Ravi had an idea. What if chai could be more than just a drink? What if it could be a brand? He noticed how people were becoming health conscious. So he started experimenting, adding ginger, tulsi, cinnamon, and other herbs to his chai to make it healthy and unique. He named his creation, Power Chai. With a few savings and help from Shankar, he began selling it under that name at the station. People loved it. Word spread. Office workers would come down to the platform just to get their morning cup of Power Chai. One day, a woman asked him, "Where's your shop?" He laughed and said, "Right here." Platform number 3. The dream reality. Encouraged by demand, Ravi applied for a small business loan. But bank after bank rejected him. He approached local investors. One of them laughed and said, "You're just a tea boy. Why don't you go make me a cup instead of wasting my time?" That night, Ravi didn't sleep. He sat beside his mother's bed and cried. But when the sun rose, he got up, washed his face, and went back to work stronger. He started marketing Power Chai through WhatsApp groups. Local fitness trainers, yoga centers, and co-working spaces began placing bulk orders. He hired 2 of his childhood friends and taught them everything. Power Chai rises ****. By the time Ravi turned 21, Power Chai had its first small outlet. Then a second. Then a franchise in Pune. A local newspaper published his story, from tea boy to entrepreneur. Soon after, a startup investor reached out and offered funding. Ravi hesitated. He still remembered the laughter, the rejections. But this time was different. With funding, Power Chai expanded rapidly across Mumbai and other cities. Ravi made sure his brand stood for more than profit. All employees came from poor backgrounds. Half of the company's profits went into education funds for underprivileged children. The return to the platform ****. Years later, now a billionaire in earnings and impact, Ravi returned to the same railway station in a simple shirt and old sandals. He stood on platform 3 with a tray of tea and shouted once again, "Chai! Chai!" People stopped. Some recognized him. Some cried. He offered free chai that day to travelers, vendors, beggars, coolies, anyone who wanted a cup. A little boy came to him and said, "Bhaiya, are you famous?" Ravi smiled, gave him a cup, and replied, "I'm just someone who never stopped believing." Today, Power Chai is a global brand. Ravi speaks at international conferences, launches scholarship programs, and mentors young entrepreneurs. But he never forgets his roots. He keeps the first kettle he used in a glass box in his office. It reminds him that even from the humblest places, the richest dreams can rise. You don't need a big start to make it big.